Welcome to the Malifaux Book Club. Today's subject, Wyrd Chronicles, Issue 5.
Tim just wanted to be in the recording.
Hi, Tim. Come join us on the call. God. Well, welcome back to Steam-powered Scoundrels, I guess. Kind of. We're doing one of those things, and, you know, Nate's in charge today, so nothing good can happen from this. But, you know, it's been a while since we did one of these, what do we call them, Malifaux fluff features?
Yeah.
I'm thinking I want to change the name. I think I want to go Malifaux Book Club. Does everyone think of Malifaux Book Club?
Yeah.
Eli, what do you think?
Perhaps.
I haven't thought of anything witty, so, you know, we'll see. Spoiler alert, look at the title of this episode, and that'll tell you what we decided to call this feature. Anyways, I'm Nathan. You know, I'm not Doug, turns out.
You spent a stone to be in charge.
I drained a stone to be in charge of the podcast. Doug is dead, which is very unfortunate, but we'll still manage to score our points. And who else here is with me? Who's this other ginger? Wait, that doesn't help.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
The one with the beard. Let's start with you.
That would be me. I am me.
All right, thank you, me.
Yep.
And who's the other one without the beard?
That would also be me.
Okay, good. We have me, and Nate. Cool. What a good podcast. God, I feel like I'm having like a schizophrenic episode right now.
Third base.
Anyways, so...
The beardless one is Eli, in case anybody
Hello,
know.
Eli the beardless one.
And the bearded one is Roman.
Hello, Roman the bearded one. The other bearded one. So yeah, how's everybody doing? We're all here. Anything fun or special to talk about? You know, there's nothing happening in the wider Malifaux scene right now, right?
No, I don't think
No.
so. I haven't heard anything.
Well, except for the NDA I signed where I'm working on, working on 5th edition.
Right. But unfortunately, Johnny Wyrd has to come and hunt you down personally now that you mentioned it. So
Yeah.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
It's okay. It was honestly my chance at whenever they resculpt Cooper, one of the runaways is legitimately going to be me.
Nice. You know, we can also steal from other podcasts. So what's everyone drinking? I've got a Mountain Dew hard seltzer by Baja Blast pineapple. That's doing me good.
Nice.
Got something that wishes it was a dark and stormy. It's ginger ale with some dark rum in it.
So light and drizzly?
It's still dark.
Dark and drizzly.
There we
It's
go.
a fine Scottish weather. The rain's coming straight down. I have that delightful mixture of sugar and lime and rum known as a daiquiri.
Very nice. Now that we got that out of the way, you know, very important signature on our podcast, Steam-Powered Scoundrels. First thing we'll do is immediately jump out and say, hey, if you haven't heard, if you haven't been listening, if this is the first episode you're listening to in the past several months, we have a thing happening at the end of June. One Good Things Happen Malifaux event, mini
Charity
convention,
event.
charity event. Yeah, charity event. That's probably the best way to put it. Various events, very fun. Come spend your money to help whatever charity we deem fit. That is happening at the end of June, the 27th through the 29th at Fairview Heights, Illinois, nearest to Lewis at Impact Gaming Center. So come join us for that. You will hear us talking about it a lot.
And if you don't come join us for that, we have to assume that you like children's cancer.
Yes. Or you will be giving us money over the internet to make up for your lack of presence there.
Yes.
Specifically for helping, you know, avoid the children's cancer and all. But with that out of the way, now that we're fully done with all the bookkeeping, as it were, we're back to talking about some fluff. Specifically, you know, we figured all this new stuff that's happening, why would we talk about that? That's way too up to date and modern. So we're going to go back to the head of years of 2013, way back, you know, over a decade ago. I don't think Roman and I were even playing this damn game yet. And we're on, I don't think so. I think I've looked at it. We didn't start playing until 2nd edition anyway, so this is still 1.5.
Okay, then
we were definitely not playing the game at this point. Like, I think I had looked at it with one of my college roommates once.
Okay.
And had not touched it. But this is volume 5 of the Wyrd Chronicles. So, like any good review, we're going to immediately jump to page 17, because the bulk of this episode will be talking about the meat that happens in those first several pages. And we have, some fun articles, because we read this thing for the articles, not the centerfolds and pretty pictures. True, right?
I don't know, that Lucius centerfold on page 16 is pretty good.
It's pretty hot. He's got them high-waisted dad pants and those long legs. Let's go.
And the like buccaneer boots. Oh yeah.
I think he's looking sexy. But we'll get to that guy. We'll get to that guy in a bit. We'll have plenty to say about that fella.
Spoilers.
He's had no recent changes that are worth talking about. But our first article here is titled Needle and Thread by one Justin Gibbs, who is probably a more familiar name to folks in the community right now, as I believe Mr. Gibbs has been rehired by Wyrd as a designer for 4th edition. It's kind of fun to have a little flashback here to what he was doing back here in 2013, working for Wyrd. They're talking about the essentially 2nd edition, or the unstitched version of the Puppet Wars board, which, I actually own this, and it is a nice product. I haven't gotten it to the table, but like the models are great. It's a great looking game. There's a million other games to play. But I like a lot of the discussion here about like updating the game, and a lot of it seems very, very pertinent to discussions happening right now around moving from addition to other games.
Yeah, reading through this, it's not a 1-for-1, but you can definitely see a similar mind frame as far as going from Puppet Wars to Puppet Wars Unstitched as changing editions from 3 to 4 for Malifaux. Because there's a lot of things that's really complex and creates a lot of analysis paralysis. What if we made it so it was still interesting and gave you a decision point, but didn't do that thing? Like that. And also just a lot of that happening.
Just the talk of like repackaging to make a more easy onboarding experience. Like literally, impressive that it would have been like $95 for a box set to start, and they knocked it down to a $75 box with 44 models and a nice high quality. Like the materials in that board game are top notch, honestly.
Nice.
Like all the models are nice, a pair of good decks, a nice board, like board game board. It stands up with other board games. So like a lot of that repackaging kind of headaches turned into potentially a streamlined experience it's good to see. Like with anything, there's a bit of a time capsule element to all these discussions, and we'll just kind of knock through these fast because that's not why people are here. But the next article is about designing Gracie, Wong, and Bert, and kind of a general talk about doing homages. Given that if you didn't know that those 3 characters are homages to the movie Big Trouble in Little China, I thought this was an interesting discussion of designing the characters who apparently they had originally designed Bert to be a human mercenary, to be a more 1-for-1 for Jack Burt.
Interesting. Nice.
And then they decided to gremlinize him, and it turned out turning a kind of cocky loudmouth screw up trucker into a gremlin wasn't that hard, so maybe there's still a chance for me.
So long as you don't go the way of Tall Gremlin and just hang out with Seamus.
Ugh. And that's actually relevant too, but we'll get there later.
That's a secret clue that will help us later.
That's some foreshadowing, Roman, to this very article. Or not article, but magazine. And then this next article is by Mr. Adrian Scott, a Professor Pink Pontificates, which have been in multiple of the other issues. And I think this one is actually really relevant because it is about essentially hand control. This honestly, like, I would point someone to this for a good dive into hand control. Like, a lot of the stuff about damage flips isn't going to be relevant for 4th edition, obviously, presuming that things stay the way they are, which there's no reason to think they won't for 4th edition. A lot of this is very relevant, like how to consider your math of what your hand looks like versus what the deck looks like.
Yeah, and while the math will change with things like Empower and other differences between then and now, again, in general, thought process going into this, I think, is you're calling it out really well of great thing for people to look at.
I think there's a section here about, like, what do you do if you draw a bad hand? And I think it's interesting that, like, well, this conversation's been happening, obviously, since the beginning, but, like, how they've, instead of just being like, hey, just play defensively, as they say in this one, they've, in the newer edition, decided to just sort of change things.
Yeah, they've added a mechanic to make that feel less bad, which is good, and that's a learning point.
Yeah. Well, I like the fact that in that they call out the mentality of, like, okay, if you drew a bad hand, that just means those cards aren't in your deck. You can't control when the good cards come out, but they're all still in there.
Try to, like, focus on, like, positive and negative flips if you can, like focusing and whatnot. It's good. It's a lot of great advice in this little column. And I think it's kind of been talked to death at this point because the game is, however many years old at this point, going on, 15? But, well, different iterations of the game. But yeah, good article. I recommend reading it. And our next one is a painting feature by Mark Rogers of Painting Masaki. And oh my god, this paint job that he ends up with on Masaki is gorgeous.
It is. Before you get too far into that, though, I want to scroll back one page to the end of the Professor Pink Pontificates. That, like, puppet art of Lynch with the big, like, hand holding him with the cards on fire. I love this.
Yeah,
this is great.
So many of these puppet arts that didn't really get used for anything are really great. So again, like for the casual observer, just scrolling through some of these chronicles, just for some of the art, if you don't want to be the person who sits around and reads the articles, if you just want to look at the pretty pictures in the chronicles, be that kind of pervert. There's a nice puppet Jacob Lynch here for you.
If they want to do that, Nate, where can they find these chronicles?
A drive-through RPG, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe that is correct, yes.
Yes, and you can, they're all free, so just go to drive-through RPG, search Wyrd or Chronicles or some combination of all of that, and you should be able to download them all completely free. It's a great place to get some extra lore that you might not have known about that's not in the core books, and some other fun stuff like this painting guide, which is very in-depth and detailed, and it's like a 5-page painting guide for Masaki, and the end result is absolutely freaking gorgeous.
Yeah, and just the fact that he's talking about like yellow and purple, which are traditionally difficult to paint for a number of reasons, and you're putting them opposite one another, like
not even opposite, grading into each other, like blending purple into yellow.
I was talking as far as like color wheel, but the blending into it is so good.
And I added a fish to the little leg suit. This is the second edition Masaki. Well, I guess 1.5 edition Masaki. Yeah, 1.52 edition Masaki, where she's got the like. Although he modeled his own like watery leg sweep as opposed to the one she comes with. She's got the Bacento across her back. Yeah, and it has a nice little bit about freehanding like flowers on there too, which is cool. Yeah, it's a lot of and like it's just like it's simpler than it looks sometimes.
If you break it down in individual pieces,
you're not really drawing a flower. You're drawing parts together that then look like a flower from afar.
You're making a wiggly line and some dots and some more different dots.
Done similar on a King John crew, and I had decent results. Not nearly as good as this. Any other thoughts on the Masaki here?
I want to call it the hair. The little, it's 8 small pictures, but 8 close together pictures of how to do hair I found weirdly helpful, because I know I've had issues like making hair pop previously if it's not like already a bright color, and that was really good. So definitely recommend this for a number of different difficult things to do for this specific thing, this specific article.
Next up, there is a section about what would be the early buds of gaining grounds for the Wyrd Organized Play 2013. Not really going to go over this, not really crazy relevant, but it's interesting to see how things were developing and how we ended up in the kind of regular cycle we are. Obviously, there's details on how they changed strategies and schemes, and there's a whole lot of information there. After that, we have a couple of comedy gremlin bits, which are fun. There's a little comic about a gremlin named Zeke, which I'm suspecting is a precursor to Ezekiel, given that he is a necromancer gremlin who worships Seamus from the look of it, which is a little disappointing for my special boy Zeke. But fortunately, the other members of the members of the LaCroix family are there to support an intervention for him. Until he, they tell him he shouldn't be trying to just copycat Seamus, and he, points out their hypocrisy.
Yeah, the pretending to be someone is just lame. I died laughing reading that. I'm like, hang on.
Come on, Rami.
Cosplay faction says what?
It's cute. And there's a gremlin-y Q&A, which is amusing. Very amusing. They seem to imply that there's an Earl Burns at a typewriter being tortured to type out things. And then the next section I thought was really interesting is a campaign rules section, once again by Mr. Justin Gibbs. Yeah. Which a lot of this, if you're familiar with the Shifting Loyalties campaign, it looks like a lot of the seeds for that were kind of started to grow here.
Yeah.
A lot of these things are very familiar, like the like wounded model charts and the upgrades that you can put on your models, and how you earn script to upgrade your crew for future games and all that. Like, is a huge section. Like it was really definitely like the first steps towards that.
This is what?
It's 2013, so that's almost like 5 years before the Shifting Loyalties book.
Yeah, and this is what, 10 pages of that already?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they had a nice skeleton there, and they kept it in the closet until they were ready.
Very, very interesting to see that laid out early. And again, there's more puppet art here. Puppet Bishop, Puppet Johann. Very cute. Puppet Taylor with the underboob as she had in first edition.
Gotta have that Puppet under boob.
Gotta have the puppet under boob. Goodness.
Got an ad for The World Needs an Evil Baby Orphanage.
Yep, of course. Yeah.
Yep.
And then the last article in the magazine is about the showdown system. I think I've seen. Didn't you pick that one up at one point, Eli?
Yeah, I think I still have them around somewhere.
Yeah, it's like pre-constructed decks, which are, I mean, they're essentially poker decks, so you can use them as fate decks from Malifaux. Yeah. But it's a whole other game system, which is interesting. It looks like they had plans to do more with it, and it probably didn't do as well as they'd expected, I would guess, which is unfortunate. But, you know, some things work and some things don't. That was also by Mr. Justin. So, a lot of Justin in this one. Anyways,
that means after they get Forey out the door officially, maybe that means Justin's next thing will be bring back Chronicles.
Hell yeah. Let's start the next petition.
Yeah, we hunger for more lore and Chronicles. Give them to us.
Just make Justin do it. He's not busy enough.
Yeah, no, not at all. And if he's too busy, he can just ask Kyle. Kyle's not doing anything, right?
Yeah, Kyle's not occupied with a million other plates. Of course not. How could he be? Anyways, any other thoughts before we get into the meat and potatoes? The things that folks came here for?
I like potatoes.
I do like potatoes.
As a thought.
Okay. Well, if no one has anything else to say about the rest of the issue, we can move on to, as I said, the meat and potatoes. We have a little story, a little tale, if you will, called "The Assassin's Ball" by Mr. Graham Stevenson. I think we've heard that name a lot.
One is easily one of my favorite of the Chronicle stories.
I can't imagine why. Again, as we've noted, Graham Stevenson, pretty common name in these, especially early days of Malifaux writing. So yeah, let's just hop right into it, why don't we? So, starts off, there's a little candlelight meeting. There's a number of guild officials. We seem to be kind of in the point of view of one Minister Burke. But there's also Fisher and Mr. Dougherty, or Darty, if you're from Steluis.
I hear he has a ferry.
All the Steluis fans will get that joke. And they appear to be having a little meeting. They appear to be guild officials, varying ranks. I think Mr. Fisher is a clerk. I don't remember exactly what Mr. Dougherty was, like a rich fat person. It made a lot about how he was a bit of a
yeah.
That's all you need to be powerful in the guild is be rich or fat.
Yeah. But they're having a little clandestine meeting by literally a single candle, with a handful of assassins. We have Bolivia, Kurshov, and Alvarez.
I really like this scene setting up just because you have the setup of this is a single candle in the center of the table, so we're very clearly doing some shady dealings, and it's like, oh, by the way, we're all talking guild officials here, and I think a lot of the times that we've seen them in like a paper pusher sort of way, not like a Lady Justice or somebody else hitting the streets sort of way. A lot of the times we've seen them, it's been, oh, we're in the conclave, we're like we have forms and like seals and things. This is all, it's shitty because we're a bad government, but we're on the up and up. This is where we're seeing them like, no, we actually have to work in the shadows for this one.
Yeah, this might be the first real example of like inter-guild strife.
Yeah.
That I can think of.
Good call out.
But yeah, so they start discussing a plot to assassinate some other guild member of higher rank that Mr. Burke or Minister Burke wants to take the place of. They leave that a bit of a mystery for a minute as the assassins go over their how they're going to be the one who actually does it. You know, they do a little bit of that hired gun one-upsmanship. But as they go to conclude their little meeting, you know, big reveal, dun dun dun, we're going to kill Lucius.
Roll credits.
Just kidding. That's the cold open.
Yeah, I meant opening credits.
The opening credits, right. That makes sense. But our scene moves on from there. They go to Lady Tannery's ball, where we see Lucius exiting his carriage alone. Gasp, the scandal.
Mm-hmm. And yet still, while it's just him, through sheer force of personality, parts the crowd in a biblical sense, like the Red Sea.
They make a big point about pointing out his, like, almost mystical level of charisma.
Yeah, he has literal orbits of gravity and such. I found that they balanced that really well the way they were writing it to essentially make it a motif in the way they were repeating it in various ways without hitting it over the head. Like it rolled into everything else they were talking about as opposed to specifically calling it out by itself.
Each individual person that we get a point of view from has their own like moment of like observing Lucius's aura, basically.
Yep. And it makes sense because they are targeting him. Like, so it makes sense that they're all having their own moment of analysis at various points in the story. But yeah, so he is suspiciously without his standard security entourage, which we start the party in the point of view still of Minister Burke, who goes on to have his own little internal monologue, considering that he would be a stronger leader in the role of the secretary to the governor general. He considers Lucius to be a bit of a fop, similar to Mr. Darty. A bit excessive, whereas Minister Burke considers that he would be a better fit because he's more like strict and rigid and more down to business.
To defeat the Huns?
To defeat the Huns. Speaking of, not really, but the party does open with some more, they call out its more Asian influenced drinks and music and entertainment, which kind of has that like Europeans fascinated by, I guess, to put it in a term, Orientalism.
Yeah.
In a term of the time.
Yeah. And they couch it in terms of the time very nicely there. And it's happening because the tanneries, Lady Tannery, had been there and was like, oh, this is fun. And it's 100%, again, they don't specifically say it, but this is 100%, oh yes, I'm rich and powerful and I've been on this trip. Making the theme of my next party, the entirety of this trip is going to dunk on everyone that comes here.
Yeah, appropriation at its best.
Yeah. But
also, like, it potentially leans towards maybe Thunder's influence, since it is in Malifaux territory. So they don't explicitly ever say anything like that, but it's just something to consider from the perspective of the setting. They spend a bit of time describing the sheer opulence of Tannery Hall. Like, she has her own hall. I loved the description of the chandelier with the like 150 candles that had to be like manually winched down and independently lit. That felt like it was going to be a Chekhov's gun.
Yeah, I was.
It was more of a set piece, but yeah, like it felt like it was something that was going to get used. But the story doesn't go that direction, which is
fair. Definitely gave me big Phantom of the Opera idea. Just like, oh shit, okay, watch the dance floor. Which, yes, but not for the reasons you're thinking.
And it goes into detail about how Lucius is immediately at the arm of the host, Lady Tannery. And I liked this description where Burke was like seeing Lucius in the mask. Let me find the line because this one really stood out to me. Yeah,
it's on page 8, the 4th paragraph.
Yeah, that was the one. More than a representation of the uniformity of the guild, more than presenting an expressionless and implacable face to the world in general, it was impossible to quite tell what Lucius was discussing with Lady Tannery out of earshot. No facial expression, no moving lips, Lucius could deliver a platitude or a motion to war with the same inscrutability to the casual observer. I love that, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, that line really stood out to me. It's just like, it gave practicality to the mask in a way that was more than just the symbolic nature of it.
Yeah, while at the same time, not directly in a symbolic idea, but it's building the myth of the mask. Of this is as much a tool that Lucius uses as everything else. Because, okay, he can dress as foppishly as he wants, but you still don't know when he's coming towards you if he is looking at you with a smile, is he happy to see you, or am I about to stab you in the kidney?
Lucius would never.
No, he has people for that.
Yeah, he's too much of a gentleman. He would never dirty his hands with that kind of dirty work.
Then no, I was gonna say, then they put in a sentence about how the party really starts to kick off and there's more dancing begins, which leads to our first assassin. I
do love how they like conclude the again, to use probably kind of an outdated term, the Oriental part of the party and go into more Western music for the actual dancing, because I imagine none of these more Western nobles know how to dance or conduct themselves with Eastern music.
Yeah, no clue whatsoever.
Plus, they're all drunk at this point, so.
Yeah, I did like that call out of, oh, it's rice wine. Like, that would never normally be here, but it fits the theme. And I had that thought of, I wonder how much of that is not only it fits the theme and you're dunking on your guests, but at the same time, if it would never normally be there, probably it suggests you're giving them the cheap stuff, and then you're not having to use as much of the good stuff later.
Yeah. But yeah, they call out that the clock strikes 8, and we go to our first assassination attempt with our assassin Bolivia, the one female assassin. Her general course of action is to essentially attract a younger drunk noble, and attract him as a dance partner, and then lead him out onto the dance floor using his drunkenness as a cover for, bumping into people. And as she's specifically approaching Lucius, leading her drunken dance partner, she reveals essentially a needle from her. She has a ring that she twists, and it reveals a half-inch needle that is loaded with what is apparently a pretty nasty poison. From the way she describes it, she gets continuously closer and closer and closer, and as she's about to swing in and try to nick Lucius with this
Before
needle,
we get to that,
yep, go on.
we get her perspective of Lucius, as we get from everyone. And she talks about how he's incredibly graceful in his dancing and very charismatic. And I believe she says it's almost a shame to have to kill him.
Yeah, and then contrasting him to Burke, which she says she could never envision Burke in a similar setting. And I believe we jumped past this earlier, but from Burke's perspective, he had a moment where it's like, I want to be more powerful, but I just don't like people. I don't like this glad handing that Lucius is having to do. And he's like, I'd learn to deal with it since I'd have the power, because it definitely has its perks, but this following that, again, just an interesting multi-viewpoint to have here that I really appreciated.
Yeah, and then there's also just the immediate contrast to her own dance partner as well, which was intentional. She intentionally chose someone that she assumed would be a clumsy, drunken dancer. But as she goes to make her pass at Lucius, her dance partner literally crushes her hand and stabs her with her own needle, quote-unquote, accidentally. As it would seem.
The thing I really liked with this was the way she describes the dance partner in that moment. That's
from the bottom on page 9.
Yep, there it is. He still wore that slightly drunken expression, but his eyes were suddenly sharp and focused. It hit her that her dance partner was stone cold sober. That's 2 sentences. It doesn't even offer a lot of specific adjectives and actual description, but it paints that scene exactly. And it specifically for me, brought up, and I don't have a specific scene to point to, but the idea of Bruce Wayne acting the fool at parties so that he can be like, I gotta go. I spilled, champagne all over myself. Has nothing to do with that giant light out the window. Promise.
Right?
It's also, you get your first, understanding of how deeply Lucius understands what's going to happen tonight.
Yep.
Because she thought she picked this person.
Yep.
She explains her process of catching his eye and passing by him multiple times and getting him to drink some and blah, blah, blah. And the whole time she was the target.
She thought she was in control the whole time, and it just on a dime and it resolves. The way it resolves is so fast too. From the moment he crushes her hand, she realized she's dying, and he pulls her off the dance floor so quickly that nobody notices, and then hands her off to some goons. Just instant, she's gone. So then we move on as they kind of frame these in hour segments. So we move on to 9 p.m. as the clock strikes 9 to Mr. The Russian Kudryashov's. And I listened to this twice today. But anyways, so he's watching from a balcony, and it went on. He noticed that Bolivia had vanished, and he comes to the assumption that she had lost her nerve, going into a powerful target like Lucius.
Yeah. I appreciated the professional courtesy of, you know what? You could forgive her for that. With the stakes as high as they are, it's fine. It's fine. No one's going to hold that against her. That's what I'm here for.
It comes off as a bit cocky.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a hired assassin. You kind of expect them to be. They're all a bit cocky. It's a running theme with these 3 characters, how they assume that the others completely failed at their work and that they'll be the ones to do it. So he has his own little scheme that he's been running this whole time. He mentions that he prefers knives, but that he had a different plan given that Burke wanted this done a bit more quietly. So he's literally been play acting at a limp for it seems like about a week or so since he got invited to this party. And it implies that he's a big enough name that Lucius is going to have eyes on him as an assassin. So he is literally keeping rocks in his shoes to like make the affectation of the limp more real. But that excuses him to have a walking stick that is actually a gun.
Dart gun specifically.
Yeah, specifically a dart gun with like a magnesium black powder mechanism to fire off a high speed dart that has been carefully rifled to maintain accuracy. I love the absurdity, Jesus, of this plan. It's this one kind of amuses me of the three.
Yeah,
because it's just like Bolivia's with extra steps. Because he's also using the same poison.
Though I do also like the again understated cockiness of, I don't really need the poison. The dart by itself usually kills people, but for the amount of money I'm getting paid, sure, we'll use the poison.
So fucking goofy. I love it.
Yeah. Yep.
As he's doing his little prep work, a waiter shows up and offers him a short balding servant offers him some champagne, which he imbibes and then starts to keep an eye on Lucius. Once the dances kind of come to a stop and Lucius is struck up with conversation, which this note was interesting to me. He's having a conversation with Lord Tannery and a vast Prussian whose handlebar mustache looked to be carved from wood, which to me seems to be like an early potential like Von Schill stand-in.
Yep.
Which I think would be kind of cool. Obviously, Von Schill no longer partakes in these kind of parties, but like I could see early Von Schill still negotiating, you know,
I kind of took that as a governor's proxy.
See, Prussian really falls for Von Schill, especially with the handlebar mustache, because that's always kind of been his signature.
Fair enough.
But he, our assassin, lines up a clean shot, does this whole like, oh, my leg hurts, and he aims his stupid gun cane down the balcony. But it would seem as he's prepping his little gun cane, Lucius appears to be looking directly at him. Which
again,
I mean,
you're wearing a mask, you can't tell.
Right. What a power move, though.
Yeah.
And as he's about to take his shot, our little, nondescript balding waiter comes back and stabs him in the ribs.
Specifically, he's come back with a tray of glasses, which, while they're still all on there, they're more than half of them are empty, so they'd be like rattling around. And he makes a good point of, I didn't hear him approach. I think all three of the spoiler, we'll have another one with the next assassin, but I think for all three of these, they have little subtle mentions that suggest not human. It's
or at least
quiet on this one. It's the strength on the dancer.
Yeah, or at least incredibly professional.
Yeah, but I love the fact that question is suggested but not answered. It's like, how many of these are mimics versus the elite group is elite for a reason?
But yeah, so this waiter stabs Kurtashov in the ribs, like just instant kill shot, like right to the heart, and like in such a way where most of the bleeding is going to remain internal. I don't know how accurate that really is, but he lays him out and moves on.
I love that we're getting his internal monologue on like, this is exactly the way the knife hit me because I like knives and this is one of the ways I know how to kill people, and I recognize that this guy must be fucking amazing.
Game recognizes game, as it were.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is a cute little ending there for our Russian assassin. Pour one out for a homie. He knew he'd lost to the better man. And then the clock strikes 10. And we get to our final assassination. Well, our final assassin of the evening.
Yeah, the assassin ghost of Christmas yet to come.
Yes. And that leaves us with Alvarez, who previously mentioned was the highest paid of the assassins. And we get a little insight into that. And he also has his moment of essentially watching Lucius spread this like web of well-to-do high society folks, as he's like, Alvarez is kind of waiting for him to like wear out his contacts, and there just keeps being another countess, another businessman, another another official, another minister. And Alvarez also mentioned he's another not people person, and he's waiting, and he doesn't understand why Kurtashov hasn't taken the shot yet. So he decides to make his move on Lucius.
I do think it's interesting that each one of them seems to wait for the others to do it first.
I assume there was a plan, like an order of like, if it hasn't happened at this point, move on to the next one. Again, I assume the reason 3 assassins were hired was to have layers of fail-safe, and they all just, for whatever reason, don't assume failure, they assume cowardice.
Yeah.
Or
again,
laziness.
and assume they're better than the other people.
Yep. But this guy, this Mr. Alvarez, goes and finds himself a nice seat, sits down, and essentially astral projects, releases his ghost from his body. And he kind of goes into this, like, describes how the room is, the colors are faded, kind of fuzzy, and he's moving through the crowd. Lucius is talking to two young hot blondes with ample cleavage, and an older European gentleman whose alcohol he can literally taste through the spirit realm. Again, very, very interesting descriptors for, like, ghost mode.
Yeah, and I do love that we have this. The other two assassins are, while ridiculous, a little more standard way of approaching it, and then this just nicely reminds you, by the way, we're in Malifaux, and weird shit goes on here.
Well, I'll put a pin on that. I'll come back to that when we get to the end of the story, because I have thoughts on the structure of how they structured the assassins. But I'll let us conclude here before I do that. But as he gets closer to Lucius, and he mentions he can literally just like reach into his chest and like crush his heart with his ghost hand, I guess. There's a strange woman in the crowd who clearly can see him in his ghost form and gives him the old naughty naughty, and that alerts him to the fact that our nondescript balding waiter is standing next to his body, and before he even has really a chance to react, he gets shanked and dead, which apparently doesn't do your soul very good when you're disembodied.
Turns out.
Wow. Which, again, like, each of these has shown like an intimate knowledge of how the person is going to assassinate Lucius.
They're well and fully prepared for this attempt.
Yeah, and again, much like the dance partner, this woman wasn't just there for this scene. She had watched him, and he'd seen her multiple times.
And she's the most obviously like strange appearance.
Yes.
Copper-colored hair scraped back from her temples, scalp into a huge cone, making her skull appear more stark and bulbous. She's noted to have a very odd appearance.
Yeah, and small and uneven gray teeth.
Very unsettling creature.
Honestly, reading that description again, you know what that makes me think of? Crookskins.
I almost just for the setting, my brain went to Hildegard.
Also, I mean, yes, but just the bulbous and the little teeth, for whatever reason, just made me think Crookskins.
There's any number of potential.
Again, I don't think Crookskins were involved at this point.
They were not.
Like, not models. I think they just simply weren't around.
Yeah, no, they weren't. I'm just saying, with as much as we've seen now and throughout 3E, they've brought things in from first edition fluff. I'm not saying she is one. It was just like, again, the iconography.
Gave you vibes.
Exactly.
Kind of made me think of the 4th edition lawyer sculpt. Like,
yeah,
her hair's
the one
not a cone, but
it's pulled back and she's kind of slick and strict looking. Yeah, I can see that. So that is our three assassins thoroughly defeated by Lucius's network of capable people. So we jump back to Minister Burke, who is frustrated at this point that all of his plans have been completely foiled. Doesn't even know the fate of all of his assassins, but he realizes that, like, if Lucius isn't dead at this point, then nothing has gone to plan. And the fact that not only did Lucius outmaneuver him, but also just kept the party going, because, like this line here, he had the nerve to continue the evening's activities as though nothing had happened. But that was just it. He thought bitterly, nothing had happened. So he's thoroughly humiliated, and the clerk, who was a co-conspirator, comes to essentially be like, what happened? And he just tells Fisser, go home, man. We failed, leave. Just get out of here. And at this point, Burke realizes that there had to be an inside man, and it was Dougherty. It had to be Dougherty. Like, and as he's having this consideration, Lucius shows up.
Yep.
Like, hey, buddy. And Burke's a little drunk, so he's not having a good time.
And this is the first time we actually get like any like point of view of interaction with Lucius.
Yeah, we haven't had any dialogue from Lucius up until this point. Which again, as like a storytelling mechanic, I really love. I love that this story focuses on Lucius and he really only talks for like 3 pages of.
I think it does it well, because you get a lot of stories similar to this. I would say Dreamer's an example, where it's like Dreamer is not the main character of his story. He's just the thing that shows up and torments this guy who's out in the woods type of thing. But this one, a lot of the Neverborn get that treatment, where it's like, oh, they're just the spooky thing that's they're props early on. And Lucius, this story shows that you can do that while also letting the character be a character.
Yeah. He nicely walks the line between being othered by not being interacted with, and like he's othered in a creepy way, but also you're talking with him. That's so much worse.
Yeah, you're talking with him. He clearly knew everything and is like laying out the whole situation at your feet in no uncertain terms without actually like admitting to anything. It's chilling.
I really appreciate, and to add to that, Burke sighs or like speaks, and based on that, through this mask, Lucius smells his breath and knows the vintage of the wine.
To be fair, it was the wine that he brought that Burke was
Which
very
true.
like, what a pompous asshole for sending wine to the party. And then he drinks the wine to an inebriation.
Yeah, but like for the same, it's another bit of spice on the oh shit I'm fucked Sunday that Burke is currently being served.
But yeah, this whole scene is just incredible, where he just lays everything out like in kind of like reverse speak of like, oh man, my people said, if I go out alone, like someone would come at me like that, that'd be ridiculous. Right?
Yep.
Yeah,
An
right.
absurd notion.
Anyways.
Yeah, and specifically obliquely referring once to each of the three.
Yep. Talking about being on the dance floor.
Yeah, the near miss. Yep.
Didn't even notice that. That's really good.
Feel revitalized on a spiritual level. My heart beats all the stronger for it.
Okay, I didn't even catch that. Oh, that's really good.
And they were quite convinced that some villain would take a pot shot at me.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, that's so good. I hadn't even caught that he was referencing all three of them. That's incredible.
Yeah, he's essentially saying, in a very charismatic way, I read your book. I got your file.
Yep. And then he departs. He leaves Mr. Burke in a state of embarrassment and shame, and he does what any drunken bureaucrat would do at this point, and realize that he's basically a dead man, so he's gonna grab a knife and try to do it himself.
Mm-hmm. I
have thoughts on that, but we'll get to it in a moment.
Yeah, I actually slightly applaud Burke for this, because I think a lot of your bureaucrats would take the flight response instead of the fight response here.
I think the answer is he's drunk.
Yeah, I
think that is a huge part of it, and probably part of the machination in general of just like, keep liquoring everyone up, and they'll make stupid choices that Lucius can capitalize on, and I think this is one of them. Because Lucius is prepared for this action as well. Because as Burke rushes out to try to knife Lucius, he gets capped by a hidden sniper, if you will.
Yep. Love those hidden snipers.
And then they one of Lucius's men basically dresses Burke up like a beggar, throws some script on the ground, says, "Oh man, what a shame. This poor man. He's clearly sleeping in the streets." And then they depart. Wouldn't you just know it? Inside Lucius's carriage is Mr. Dougherty.
Who'da thunk it?
Who'da thunk? Our scumbag traitor of the evening from our little conspiracy. And he's playing the part of a, blubbering traitor and trying to get his just desserts.
Brown nosing as much as he can.
Yeah.
Yep. This has nothing to do with that, but I really liked the line of, he looked abnormally ruddy-faced, which in his case meant puce. I'm like, that's a really good way to call someone a drunk without calling them a drunk.
Even though that also has connotations later on as well.
Yes, absolutely. But at the same time, just writing-wise, you've already said, like, this guy is fat, he's kind of useless, he's drinking all the time. Like, that is what you're saying here. You just always are red-faced.
He's a glutton. Yeah, You get the, I had a cultural touchstone I wanted to put on that. It's fucking Uncle Vernon from Harry Potter.
Yes, absolutely.
He's got the Uncle Vernon build, but he's trying to get his out of Lucius, and Lucius ain't having none of it, as it were, because this is very interesting coming out of Lucius, just in general, especially as we know the character now, but this bit about not abiding treachery, which makes sense, because like Lucius wants to be the one at the top that isn't, getting treacherized.
Yeah.
But the way he kind of goes through the three guild officials in this conspiracy of like, Visser is still a clerk because he was loyal to the end to this conspiracy. Burke would have been useful had he not, made a rash act in the end because he had passion and ambition, whereas you are a treacherous little sack that I want nothing to do with. And I poisoned you like 5 days ago.
Yeah.
Which, again, a bit convenient, but also very funny.
Yes. Well, and that seems so Lucius, too, because he said it's this specific brandy, and it's like Napoleonic, so it's probably fancy, and he doesn't offer it to everybody, but it's actually, if he offers it to you, it's his way of saying, yeah, I want you dead. You are notable enough that I will make you impressed at how cool I am that I have this. I'm sharing it with you so you'll feel some form of not subservience, but some form of, hey, I'm on his radar in a good way towards me, and he's just killing you.
He's a snake, and it's a forbidden fruit.
Yes. And on that front, with the idea of Burke being drunk, I think I really like, with that view on why he went for the knife, I feel like that setup was 100% what Lucius was expecting to happen, but it also feels to me like he was giving Burke a test. If you can stick to your guns, but also not cut and run or do something rash when I am under your skin this far, I have use for you. You failed the test, but...
Yeah, to me, it felt like very strongly implied that he would have let Burke live. He would have let him keep doing his thing. It's just that last attack was
he says that right there. There would have been a place in the guild for his concision and drive had he not acted so rashly. He did not meet the end I would have wished for him.
What a conniving bastard.
Acting rashly could have implied the just trying to assassinate him in general. But yeah, that's what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, given the context, I feel like the rash act was just picking up a knife and rushing him.
Yeah, because he starts that statement with, even Minister Burke was loyal to his cause, and that was 100% the assassination.
But yeah, so he watches Mr. Dougherty die of this poison, fed him in this Napoleonic brandy several days ago, and they dump his body, and they move on, and Lucius hums a little waltz, which kind of seems, familiar to other Lucius endings we know of.
Yep.
Our man likes music at the end of his escapades, of his victories.
He do.
And he can dance.
Yeah. It's a great character piece without like the character itself, like the focus character being the actual like, because he is like the focus, because he's the literal target of all the assassins, but he's not like
the story. He's not the POV.
Half of the story, he is not like. He doesn't even talk until the end.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, back to my point about the assassins. So again, like we had kind of the triad of the various officials and the way Lucius kind of views loyalty and, ambition, and I think that's cool. But the assassins, the thing I noticed with them is, if you think about, this is almost mechanical storytelling. In Malifaux, you have 3 ways in general to attack things. Melee attacks, ranged attacks, or projectile attacks, and magic attacks. And especially now in 3rd edition or 4th edition, where we're coming back to having a specific casting attack as like the 3rd type. So we get kind of a viewpoint into all 3 of those different those different types of attacks. And I thought
good.
It feels intentional. Like it feels like they were trying to like provide viewpoint into the different ways to like try to accomplish a murder and then get completely foiled by an absolute trickster.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. I hadn't picked up on that, but that's really good.
I think that it makes a lot of sense in the point of view of a lore for a game.
Yeah.
To do that mechanical storytelling.
Yeah. Also, just noticing in the art that we were talking about earlier on this last page of Lucius, looking dapper and every inch the fop, but, classy about it. He also has pointed dagger fingers.
Sure does.
Yep.
I'm sure that won't ever be relevant ever again.
Never. Never. Absolutely not.
Also, like the most of the figure is like pretty well lit up. You got the bright red outfit, but like that cane is really dark and has that purple tinge.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I wonder what that's referencing.
No clue.
That's Lucy.
Lucy's got some splaining to do.
No, overall, I really like this one. I think there's a lot to like in this story, and a lot of like just different storytelling elements that I don't think we had seen in some of the earlier ones that were a bit more direct.
Yeah, I think this is also one of the first longer ones that's required 2 episodes versus.
Yeah, for those who want to follow along with the Breachside Broadcast podcast, this was episodes 13 and 14, The Assassin's Ball. of Chronicles. 13
Yeah,
14
specifically Chronicles, not the regular episodes 13 and 14.
You'll be very confused if you just listen to Breachside Broadcast 13 and 14 and expect this particular story. But yeah, this is one of the first really long ones. And I think we get more of these. I don't think it's all of the Chronicles, but I think we get more of these longer form stories as they continue to publish these for the next 30 some odd issues. Something
like that. The thing that I really come back to reading through this again is just like, I don't know if it needs to be through Chronicles or what, but I need more lore. Because especially after all the third ed lore, first off, loved the different faction books where we got multiple different stories in each faction. But every book since then has been like, here's a story, and because it's dealing with the main plot, you don't have this where you get a character study, where you get to sit in this particular evening and watch it unfold. You get the big earth-shattering movement things, but you don't get this, I don't want to say down-to-earth, because that's not Malifaux at all, but you don't get this more intimate focus on a character story.
Down to Malifaux, if you will.
There you go.
It is very like the machinations, the assassinations. Like it is a study of what it is, the system and the setting it's in, where it's especially within interguild politics. Like,
yeah,
this is the first time we really see that kind of initial strife within the biggest organization in the setting itself.
Yeah, more lore.
Imagine us, the steam-powered scoundrels, the lore podcast, wanting more lore.
Mm-hmm.
And all right, shocking. But from the sound of it, with 4th edition, we're getting another set of faction books, so that should hopefully open that avenue a bit. But we're always hungry for more.
Mm-hmm. No, we're hungry for lore.
More lore.
Mm-hmm.
Any other final thoughts about our little story here?
No.
Okay then.
I concur.
I think with that, we've done a pretty good job. We can keep this one kind of nice and short and concise. Get it out to our loyal steamers.
Get it to the people.
Once again, we'll do one last reminder. Good things happen June 27th through the 29th near Lewis. So come out and see us there. We'll make sure to have more details up in the various places where you find your scoundrels. But other than that, good night, Eli.
Good night.
Good night, Roman.
Good night.
And good night, me, Nate. So yeah, go read a book. That's my ending for this. Go read a book.
Read a book.
Go read a book. Songs used in this production are Waltz of Treachery and 5-Card Shuffle. All music is created by Kevin MacLeod and licensed under Creative Commons.